The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios.
Hi, this is Mia Mosinzia, also known as Mia No Time for Love. Check out my latest book, Missing, available on Amazon.
The Mike Wagner Show, also brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future. The Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh, available on Amazon, highlighting the Book of David. And Heidi Tam Music, with her latest on HeidiTamMusic.com.
It's now time for the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartradio, YouTube, iTunes, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Mike brings you great guests and interesting people from all across the globe. So sit back, relax, and enjoy another great episode of the Mike Wagner Show.
Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Mosinzia Missing, also brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future, The Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh, based on the life of David, now on Amazon, also brought to you by Heidi Tam Music. Check our latest at HeidiTamMusic.com. We're here with a terrific lady who is an author, high school teacher, and daughter of kind Christian parents, and also taught agricultural biology, IPM program coordinator, and also a pastry chef, costume designer, beekeeper, Airbnb host, and also a science teacher. We'll talk about that journey going to that. And she has a new book, basically a powerful narrative following her transformative journey from high school science teacher to impassioned advocate, compelled by a tragic death of a journalist. We'll talk more about that. Peeling back the layers of political rhetoric and also media bias, uncovering deeply human and stories of Palestinians going unnoticed as well and unheard. Also, heartfelt exploitation of empathy, understanding, and quest for basically ending the world's most enduring conflicts. About that, the book is called Learning to Listen to Palestine, A Personal Quest. Live, ladies and gentlemen, plus studios in beautiful downtown Modesto, California. The author, high school teacher, daughter of kind Christian parents, and author of the book, Learning to Listen to Palestine, A Personal Quest. Ladies and gentlemen, multi-talented Lani Lanchester. Lani, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's great to have you on board.
Reach out.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Lani. You're an author, high school teacher, daughter of kind Christian parents. You taught agricultural biology, IPM program coordinator, pastry chef, costume designer, beekeeper, Airbnb host, and science teacher. What an amazing journey you've got. Your new book is a powerful narrative following your transformative journey from high school science teacher to impassioned advocate, compelled in the tragic death of a journalist, and also peeling back the layers of political rhetoric and media bias, basically uncovering deeply human stories of Palestinians going unheard. The book is called Learning to Listen to Palestine, A Personal Quest. Before getting on it, Lani, tell us how I first got started.
Well, you can tell from my bio that I believe in taking every good opportunity. And so I'm always interested in learning something new. And there was a point where I kind of had a tragic thing happen in my life. And I had a friend who was a Palestinian, who I told him that I was going to just go to Hawaii to sit on a beach and cry. I just needed to be alone. And he said, "Why would you do that? Why would you go to Hawaii to be miserable?"
Mm-hmm.
It's a good point, huh? So anyway, he goes, "No, you need to come to Israel. You come to Israel and you walk in the steps of Jesus." And I thought about it and I went, wow, I've always really wanted to do that. So I bought a ticket, I rented a little car, and I drove all around Israel and Palestine. And since I wasn't in a tour group, I was by myself. Everywhere I stopped, it was interesting. I just would meet people. And who I met mostly were Palestinians. And at the very beginning, it was mostly Palestinian Christians. So this really touched my heart. Mm. And what was amazing is they told me stories. They told me the stories about who they are and what they were going through. And I was shocked and surprised.
Really? How so?
Because I had never known. I had been raised a Zionist Christian, and I had never looked at the Palestinians. I was taught from very young that they're all terrorists. And this was what was in my head, and it had to be undone. Now we're learning, if we're listening to Palestine, we're realizing that there's a lot more going on there. And But what started it for me was before I went to Israel. I told my dad I was going to rent a little car and drive around Israel, and he was worried. He thought, that he was worried for my safety because I wasn't in a group. I wasn't with all of the security that you have when you're with a group. I was just going to be by myself. And I'm like, going, I'm an American. What can happen? So I did this Google search to make my dad feel better. And what I saw was I did a search for Israel, Palestine, and Americans, the Israel-Palestinian conflict and Americans, and I got a hit.
Wow.
And that was when I read about Shireenabuakleh. She was a Palestinian Christian with American citizenship. And she had moved to America when she was young, went to college here, worked here, got her degrees here and everything. And then she felt called to go back to Israel and Palestine to report on the conflict, what was happening there. And so she worked there for decades, and she was exactly my age.
Mm-hmm.
And the summer before I went, she went to Jenin. And this is before we were seeing Jenin in the news. It's in the news all the time lately. But for some reason, the Israeli Defense Force, the army was there. The Israeli army was there, and there wasn't a conflict going on. So she was just there to report what was going to happen. She and her partner, they had their press jackets on, they had their press helmets on. They did just as they were trained to do. They walked slowly down the middle of the road, holding their hands where they could be seen. And a IDF sniper targeted her and shot her in the head.
Ooh.
And I was shocked. I was shocked, and I was shocked cold, and I didn't know what to do because it made no sense to me, because this was an American, and I hadn't heard about this. This happened the summer before, and there was an American who had gotten in trouble for taking illegal cannabis into Russia that year, and it was in the news all the time. My gosh. And I never heard about this woman being actually targeted and shot in the head. Why didn't I know about this? Why wasn't the State Department doing something to bring justice and to hold somebody accountable for killing an American? So I don't know. I was confused by that. And then the press, why didn't the press were talking about this woman who went to Russia all the time. Mm-hmm. So they weren't covering it. And so I was confused. And then the IDF, I always thought the IDF, it stands for Israeli Defense Force. I always thought that's what they did. Is that they defended the people. They made it a safe place. And here a woman who is absolutely innocent was dead. And the Israeli Defense Force was not holding the soldier accountable for the murder. It was proven that it was a murder. It was caught on tape. It was just shocking to me. So anyway, I prayed about it. I didn't know if I should even go.
Right.
I listened to what my dad said, and I was looking for something like this to not find something like this, so to tell my dad, I'll be fine. And I prayed about it, and I clearly heard God tell me to go. And I said, why? And he said, to listen. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. When I was driving around and meeting these Palestinians, God had already told me to listen, that I was there to listen. And so that's what these Palestinians would ask me, why are you here traveling all by yourself? And I'd say, I'm here to listen. And they go, oh, and they were hungry to be listened to because their story is so smothered. And they would sit me down and they'd pour me tea or coffee, and we would just talk. We'd talk about everything. We'd talk about their family, food, culture, their businesses, travel. We'd talk about California. And eventually some of their trauma would come out, the things that they've been going through.
Okay. And this has been going on for quite some time, right?
Yes, this has been going on since 1948, but I didn't know this.
1948? Oh my goodness. Wow, that was like after what, World War II or something like that?
Yeah, and I really didn't even know about what. In fact, when I did meet my Palestinian friend, he's was in Nazareth, and we met, and we went to a church of the Beatitudes where Jesus taught the lesson of the Beatitudes, and
right,
so we're
the
driving.
Book of Matthew.
Yeah. And so we're driving up this windy road, and if you look this way, you can see the Jordan Valley. And if you look this way, you can see the Sea of Galilee. If you look that way, you can see the Valley of Megiddo. And over there is the Golan Heights. All of these things that I've read about in the news or in my Bible, and I've been studying this my whole life. I've seen it. And I've been having this amazing trip, seeing the things that I've been reading about my whole life and meeting people. And I said something very ignorant. I just very, very foolish. And I just didn't know it. I said, there must have been something righteous about 1948.
1948.
Because 1948, that is when Israel was reborn. And as a nation. And that's the way I had always learned it. I had learned that it was this great miracle that 7 nations came against Israel, and somehow or another they defended themselves and this nation was born. But it didn't happen like that at all. And I didn't know this because my friend, he stopped the car and he said, righteous. 540 villages were destroyed. There were massacres and rapes. They killed men, women, and children. 750,000 people were forced out of their homes. And I had never heard this before. This was the first time I'd ever heard this. And so I said, tell me more about this. I've never heard this before. But he was angry and he was shocked at me, and he couldn't talk. But I did hear how alone it is, because we've been friends for more than a year, and I'm this well-read person. I do so many things. But I didn't know this, and I didn't know the trauma that his family had been through and his people had been through over these many decades.
Wow. Okay.
So, so that was the first time I learned about what's called the Nakba. The Nakba is the term that the Palestinians called 1948. Israel calls it the War of Independence, but the Palestinians call it the catastrophe, which in Arabic is the Nakba. And so when I got back home, I spent a year studying, trying to learn about this. And it was a very difficult thing to learn about, because you can get a few stories from this person or that person. But I didn't trying to get the whole story was really difficult, because you could get a few eyewitnesses, but the story's been pretty buried. But then I found this book by Elon Poppy. It's called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine.
Okay.
And he wrote
you want to bring up a little closer?
Can you see
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, so that's The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Elon Poppy. And he's actually an Israeli Jew who was born and raised in Israel. He served in the IDF, Israeli Defense Force, in 1973 war. But he loved history, and he went and studied history abroad. And it was that point where he was getting his doctorate. Okay. And he decided he wanted to do something original. So he found the recently unsealed documents from 1948 Israel. And this included the Prime Minister Ben-Gurion's personal journals. It included military reports, included communications between various dignitaries. And he went through and laid out, he didn't know this either. He had the same experience where he'd never heard about the Nakba. He never heard about any of these things until he traveled abroad and So he studied it for more than 20 years before he wrote this book. He said that he very cautiously explained what he was learning.
Mm-hmm.
Until after 20 years, he was a professor in Haifa University, and he published this book. And at that point, he had to leave Israel. He wasn't in any longer. It wasn't a good place for him a safe place for him to be anymore.
Was he getting death threats of some sort because of it, or?
I don't know. I just know that he said that his job at the university was done there. I don't know about death threats or anything like that. But I've listened to him quite a bit, and I encourage people to listen to his teaching. He actually gives a lot of hope. And that was one thing that was really helpful, because when I studied this is one of the hardest books I've ever read.
In terms of understanding, or is it more emotional or intellectual?
It was deeply painful what people went through, and to read these stories. And it was deeply painful that I had idolized Israel as this great country, and I found out what they were really based on, what was really happened in 1948. There were ethnic cleansings. What they would do is they would surround a village in a C shape. And this actually didn't start in 1948. This started in 1947. And it was very systematic. They knew what they were doing. The army, there were three different sections of army. There was the Palmac, the Oregon. Anyway, there's several different groups, but they would encircle a village in a C shape, and they would blow up a few houses with people still in them.
Oh, wow.
And then they would get everybody out of the houses, and they would separate the men, and they would kill a few of the men of a certain age. And then they would terrorize the people and drive them out of the village. And then they would either knock down the village or they would occupy it. And they did this to 540 villages. Sometimes they would enclose them entirely, and they would kill the entire village. And so there were at least a dozen massacres where everybody was killed.
Oh my gosh! Maybe think of what the Germans did to the Jewish people back in the Holocaust. Do you think they were just kind of taking it out on the Palestinians with like the shock of it, PTSD? Do you think they could have took their anger on somebody, or did they just kind of just pick up some lessons from the Germans?
I've read some of the stories from the soldiers, the Israeli soldiers, and there was some of that, but there was also a lot of guilt that they carried over that too. And that's why so many of the soldiers told years later what they went through and what they did. And so there's a lot of, in his book, there's a lot of documentation from Israeli soldiers, from Palestinians, from the soldiers from the neighboring around the Israel. So Israel and Palestine, they were supposed to divide the land like 40-60. Israel was supposed to take like 60, and Palestine was supposed to take 40. There was supposed to be a two-state solution. But what they did is they took 85%.
85%. Why did the 85% instead of the 60-40? Most importantly, why was it not 50-50?
Right. Well, because that was what was negotiated by the West, and why. And the other thing that we have to understand about what happened during that time is the Palestinians didn't have a voice. They didn't give them the land. We were always told, as I grew up with this term as a Zionist Christian, that Israel was a people. That Israel was a land without a people, and the Jews were a people without a land, and so they went together. And it wasn't true, because the land had been completely full of people, and it wasn't like desert, and it wasn't like we've been told that the Israelis made the desert bloom, and that's not true either, because there was a thriving agriculture there, everything you can imagine, from citrus and dates and olives and grains and everything you can imagine. And they were shipping it to Europe. So it was an export market. So there was Haifa, and they had 2 ports that were shipping this across the world. Not only that, there were they had a thriving culture that included radio. Can you imagine? You know, they had
of all things, radio. How do you like that?
Right, and they had trains, and they had their own airline. There was a Palestinian airline at that time. They had it all, and they were growing. They were a growing economy. So this is really sad, what had happened to them, and their story isn't heard. And so that's one of the things that's been part of the story of Zionism. Is one of the things that Zionism does is they dehumanize the Palestinian people. And this is why I had never paid attention. I never looked. I'd never known. And so on my journey, I met Palestinian Christians at first. And by the end of it, I met Palestinian Muslims, and I met refugees, and I met, and I started finding out that the stories that I'd heard were not true, that my head was full of propaganda.
Wow.
And so that's why it's called Learning to Listen to Palestine. I had to learn to listen to Palestine. And it's funny because this is something that I've always done. I've been a listener. When I'm a high school teacher, and I know that the most important thing in teaching is listening. You can't teach somebody who doesn't trust you, and they're not going to trust you if you don't listen to them.
Exactly. Yes.
So, for instance, there is a story that I tell about when I was in Texas, especially. I'd have a lot of students who didn't trust me because I look like this.
Really?
Yeah, there would be, I especially my African American boys. They somebody had mistreated them in the past, and they didn't trust me. And this wasn't all of them, but I would always have a few that had a really difficult time with me. And eventually, and I would try to win them over all of the ways you're supposed to. And eventually I'd do the thing that they didn't want to have happen. I'd tell them in the hall, because we were button heads. It was locking up the classroom. I wasn't getting anything done. They weren't getting anything done. It was just bad. And I'd tell them in the hall. And they don't want to go in the hall because this is where teachers have them alone, and they can tear them down and get control of their classroom.
Right.
But I hate this. This is not what we should do to our students. So, and I don't want to gain control of my student. I want to win my students' trust because I want to give my student a future. So this is what I would do. I'd tell them, I'd go out in the hall with them, and I'd tell them, lean against the wall. And then I'd lean next to them. And eventually they kind of go, what? And I said, we're leaning against the wall, and we're looking that way until I calm down. And then once they get that, they understand that, oh, so they get quiet. And then after a while, I'll turn to them. And by this point, when I'm calm, they're curious instead of afraid. That fight, flight, or freeze is kind of lessened. And I'll turn to them and I'll say, I love you.
Interesting.
And that's the most important thing I do in this classroom. And I shouldn't be here if I didn't love you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because if my job is to give the best outcome possible, but we need to work together to do this. And right now we're not working together. So we need to be on the same side. So we have to figure out how to be the same side. And you have to understand that there's only one side in my classroom, and that's your side. I work for you.
Right.
I'm trying to give you the best outcome possible. So at this point, I have to be willing to listen. And at this point, a student will start telling me what somebody has done to them in the past, why they don't trust me. And sometimes it could be something that I said that may have triggered them. Or sometimes, and I need to know this, and I need to get this right. Sometimes it could be somebody who looked like me, or a teacher who had mistreated them. Mm-hmm. And so I need to listen and make a plan with the student. And, you know, when we're done with this meeting, with these students who ended up like this, we could do anything together. We could get anything done. And they would love science after this, and he would thrive in my classroom.
Mm-hmm. And certainly indeed as well, too. And of course, how did you get to be a high school teacher? We'll talk about in just 1 minute with Lani Lanchester, also along the book, Learning to Listen to Palestine, A Personal Quest. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking a budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, time to give an official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has garnered great reviews and even endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, M&M's. So grab your copy today for Girls Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illumnifical, the think tank of the future that brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, creating a method to construct a renewable generator. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system, generating more energy internally that needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes, power grids, phones, and laptops. This power source is renewable, highly scalable, more importantly, self-regenerate. For more information, visit facebook.com/Illumniptical. That's ELLUMENIPTICAL today. Also, Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh, based on the life of David, including 30 exquisite paintings and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote and his time as a shepherd, where it all started, and complicated yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh, available on Amazon. Keyword, Sweet Psalmist, Shireenabuakleh. Also brought to you by High-Ten Music, featuring the smash hit Baby Come Back, and new music coming soon. Listen for details on high10music.com. Also, check out The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com on any mobile device. Take us with you. 40 podcast platforms, 100 countries. Subscribe to us on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, and more. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out The Mike Wagner Show podcast, T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out The Mike Wagner Show podcast. If you're interested, email me, themikewagnershow@gmail.com to order. And for more great gift ideas and books, Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Check out his store today and support The Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and themikewagnershow.com. We're here with the amazing author, high school teacher, daughter of kind Christian parents, Lani Lanchester, here on The Mike Wagner Show with Learning to Listen to Palestine, A Personal Quest. And first of all, how'd you get to be a high school teacher? You were taught agricultural biology, IPM program coordinator, pastry chef, costume designer, bookkeeper, Airbnb, and you get to be a science teacher. Tell us about your journey.
Oh, I've always wanted to teach, and I've always been a teacher in some ways or another. And I have this desire to give students a voice of their own. And so one of the things that I always, even in the teaching science, I focus on literacy and making sure students have a voice, that they learn how to talk about science, to write about science, to think about their own ideas. And I love science because science is not about memorizing facts. Science is about asking questions.
Really? Okay.
And so when they learn this in my classroom, they start developing their own voice. And so this is one of the things that has been my heart about teaching science. And so that's one of the reasons, like the story I just told, was so important to me because, I'm there because I love my students. And I keep on teaching because I love my students. They're one of the best parts of my life. And
of course, you went to high school yourself, and who are some influences on teachers and everything else?
Yeah, there were some very good teachers for sure, and one of them was a writing teacher. And there was one day where she, I think I went from wanting to express myself to truly understanding how to express myself. And it was something that was in me from that point on that someday I wanted to teach writing, and I wanted to help students develop a voice and maybe even write myself. So I always have wanted to write a book, and there's a book that I've been wanting to write, but this is the one that happened first, was Learning to Listen to Palestine. And this is the book that happened because it just came first. There was one day where it wrote itself.
Really? When was that? What was that one precise moment? Was it because of the death of the journalist who was shireenabuakleh, or was it something else?
No, it was. It started after October 7th, but actually it was October 14th. October 7th was a really bad day, but October 14th was my bad day because that was the day my father died.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it started off that I got a call that my dad was in the hospital. He'd had an episode, and I knew I was going to lose him that day. And I was getting ready. I was grabbing my things to go to the hospital, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and my boss and good friend, she was my age, who had been battling cancer, had died that day. So I broke down, and I heard the sound coming out of me that I've never heard. It was a keening sound. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move forward or back, but I had to get to the hospital. I had to get to Tracy, which was about a 45-minute drive. And so I called my Palestinian friend because he prays. And I told him I'm stuck. And I told him what happened, and he said, only prayer works right now. I'm praying for you. So and he told me go. And so I grabbed my things, and I got into the car and started driving to Tracy. And to encourage myself, I turned on Christian radio, wanting to have some music or some sort of encouraging words to get me there. But what I heard was a talk show.
Oh.
And that he was saying that there were these three Christian guys who were saying, if I were Netanyahu, I'd carpet bomb the whole thing. I'd squeeze it clean and start over. And so they're talking about Gaza, obviously. And so I'm going, oh, and then one of them starts to back off. Yeah, women and children would be killed. That would be awful. But then they kind of doubled down and said, yeah, women and children will be killed. And that'll send a clear message to Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. And so by the time I got to the hospital, I was crying so hard. And my dad was coding when I got there. So they were trying to get his heart to start again. And that happened 3 or 4 more times that day before he died. But I knew that day that it was what was going to happen in Gaza was going to be a genocide. Because if my people would support a genocide, it would be a genocide. Then over the next few weeks, my mom, my sister, and I had been around my dad, and we prayed over him. We sang to him as he died. And at the same time, over the next few weeks, Netanyahu did what those Christian fellows said on that radio show.
Oh my gosh.
And so my sister, my mom, and I were planning a funeral, and we're making arrangements for all of these life changes and everything, the financial, making arrangements for the church and all of this. But we had such community support, as we were going through all of this pain. Well, I just saw this complete dichotomy of what was happening in Gaza. And so here, my heart heard their pain. And so part of my learning to listen was learning to listen to pain. And so there was one time that my mom and my sister and I were sitting around a table with a funeral planner, and I looked at my phone, and they had Israel had bombed the Baptist hospital, and I was shocked. And that night, my friend called me and asked me how I was doing, and I said, "How can you ask me how I'm doing? I should be worried about you." And he said, "Lani, when you're Palestinian, you have to look at it until you can't take it, and then you look back at God, and the hope and the joy is still there." And then I started looking at the Palestinians and what they're doing, and how in between bombing and in between the horrible things that they've been going through over the past year, they experience those moments of joy together, and they keep on praising God.
Okay.
It's amazing.
I was just thinking about it too. You talked about the Palestinian Christians, the Palestinian Muslims as well, the Israeli Christians and the Israeli Muslims as well. What percentages of Palestinian Christians compared to percentage of Palestinian Muslims?
Yeah, so the Palestinian Christians make up about 2% of the population now.
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit less than 2% now. Before 1948, they were closer to 20%. So that is extremely diminished. There were 3 churches in Gaza. One of them was the second oldest church in the world, and all 3 have been bombed.
Oh my gosh!
And the atrocities happening to the church are terrible. And now 40% of the Christians, a lot of the Christians who were forced out of Israel in 1948, in Palestine in 1948, went to Lebanon. So right now, 40% of Lebanon is Christian, and so they're under fire. Those refugees are under fire there, so as well.
And what percentage is Israeli Christians? Well, Israeli Muslims and everything else. What percentage is that?
So Muslims make up, I think if Palestine is close to 80%. There are Palestinian Jews, and they are not often talked about. So I don't know the percentages there. That's a good question.
I was just trying to get some ideas of percentage and everything. And of course, getting the Palestinian Jews and Palestinian Muslims, that, the Palestinian, Christians make up the minority. Like, is there fighting going on within the Palestinian community between the Christians and the Muslims? Is there a war going on there, or conflicts or anything?
That's a good question. And actually, no, there's not. If you talk to them, they say we're the same people, we're the same culture. It's kind of like saying, is there a war going on between the Catholics and the Protestants here in the States? Why would there be? Is there a war going on between us? Why would there be? Why? We're the same culture, we're the same people, And so that's the way they see each other, and they help each other just as if they're the same people. I have friends, Palestinian friends, who they have relatives who are Christian. They have relatives that are Muslim. They have, just like any family. It's their culture, and there's a lot of support in between them. And the Palestinian Christians see the Palestinian Muslims as their close friends. Yeah.
Like this, right? Oh my gosh, yeah. And of course,
we don't hear that.
And of course, the Palestinian Christians. What's the difference between Palestinian Christians and the Israeli Christians?
Yeah, I don't know much about that, to be honest. There are not a lot of Israeli Christians. There are, because the most Israelis are people who are have moved there from other places. So Israelis are people who have moved there from Poland, from the United States, from Canada, from Russia, from Europe, from all over. So all of the Israelis are people who have colonized from other places, and who are invited to come and colonize are Jews, either ethnically or religiously. Christians are not invited to come in that way. So there is at least one, what's it called? Hang on. A Messianic congregation that I know
Messianic, yes. I remember something about that.
Yeah. And I know that there's quite a few Christians who go there, not as citizens, but they go there to study. They like to go to study in Jerusalem, and actually they go to study in Bethlehem too, but that's in Palestine.
Okay, all right. We're getting some ideas of this whole situation. Of course, everybody thought the Israelis and the Palestinians have been fighting for 2,000 years, but this turns out to be a different story, the way you describe it. So it looks like, I guess, the whole 2,000 years is pretty much out the window.
Yes, and in fact, before 1948, there were Palestinian Jews who they're Palestinian. They've been there for 2,000 years, and they're the same people. And I have a friend who is a Palestinian who his roots are Jewish.
Okay.
He's a Muslim. He's a Muslim now, and he has relatives who are Christian, but his roots are Jewish.
Huh.
And probably a lot of the Palestinians' roots are Jewish, because they are the people who, most of them, have been there for 2,000 years. If you look at the ethnically or genetically, because we do genetic studies now, you can see that genetically the Palestinians who are there, and the Jews who have immigrated to Israel, they are ethnically the same, except for the immigrants have quite a bit of European blood in them as well. So
that is really interesting.
Yeah. So they claim the land as their own by forcing off other people off the land who have been there continuously for 2,000 years, and they can trace this back. And one of the things that they do is they burn down the olive trees. The olive trees are a symbol of Palestine because they are resilient, and they're also a symbol of prayer because they reach up to the heavens to catch the sunlight, and so they're a symbol of prayer and they're a symbol of peace. But the Israelis burned down the olive trees because this shows a connection of the Palestinians to the land, because many of these olive groves are hundreds of years old. In fact, the cover of my book is a picture of a painting of an olive orchard that has ancient walls, and these walls in here, they're really cool because they are an irrigation system for catching water for these trees. And these trees are special trees for the Palestinian area because they are made for an arid land. So they're not the same as olive trees from Europe that need to be irrigated. These can survive off the water of the land. And they have these irrigation walls to catch some of the water and hold it a little bit longer. And but this type of artwork, was regularly destroyed. The artist is a Palestinian artist named Slimane Mansour. His son read the book, and Slimane Mansour donated the artwork for the cover. So his artwork was regularly confiscated by the Israeli army and destroyed.
Oh
Stuff
my
that
gosh.
looks like this. Because this is so outrageous to show a Palestinian olive orchard. Because they don't want to show the connection of the people to the land. They want to continue to tell the lie, the propaganda that the land was empty before Israel came, and it's just not true. And in fact, one of the things that my friend told me the day that I first heard about the Nakba is that these 540 villages, the Israelis plant trees over the destroyed villages to hide the evidence. And I thought, that seems really out there. But then I found that's true. The evidence is there. It's easy to find that once you know what to look for.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is rather interesting. Now explains why it's hard to get olives on a pizza. Now I completely understand. So, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. And more in the book about learning to listen to Palestine and personal quest with Lani Lanchester. We'll find out more in just 1 minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor, The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Mosensia Missing. Also brought to you by Illuminatically, think tank of the future. The Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh, based on the life of David, now on Amazon, and Music. Check our latest at highschoolteacher.com. We'll be back with the author, Lani Lanchester, of Learning to Listen to Palestine, A Personal Quest, after this time up.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hi, I'm Burl Bear, legendary American author, and I'm here to tell you about Missing, the new mystery suspense novel by Mia Mosensia. It's really a good book. Very surprising. Never metaphor I didn't like, especially in this book. Here you have a main character whose life has been filled with despair. His wife died in 9/11. His young daughter died of a rare disease. He's not a happy camper. What does he do for a living? He's a physical fitness trainer. When somebody hardly knows, someone he's never met, he only has encountered them on an internet chat line, goes missing, this is his journey. He's going to go rescue them. This is his search for redemption, his search for his own personal promised land. He couldn't do anything about the death of his wife, the death of his child, but maybe he could rescue this woman he's never met. That is, if she exists. Missing by Mia Mosensia, international in scope, vastly entertaining, full of surprises. I suggest you get it, neither paperback or an electronic edition for your Kindle. Missing by Mia Mosensia.
Baby, come back.
Heidi Tan has a new release, the remake of Player's Baby Come Back.
Spending all my nights, all my money going out of the town.
With special guest, international recording artist Nils on guitar. And now with her own twist on the classic comes Heidi Tan 2023.
Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see.
She delivers the punch you'd expect from a seasoned pro with this arrangement of Baby Come Back. Destined to be a chart topper, Heidi Tan, Baby Come Back.
The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illuminatically, the think tank of the future. Illuminatically, a human think tank that brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, has created a method to construct a renewable generator with this in mind. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system that generates more energy internally than it needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes and power grids to phones and laptops. This power source is entirely renewable, highly scalable, and more importantly, self-regenerating. For more information, visit facebook.com/Illuminatically Illuminitical. That's Facebook.com/ELLUMENIPTICAL today. The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Shireenabuakleh's Wagner's book, The Sweet Psalmist, now available on Amazon. This book includes 30 exquisite paintings by well-known and unknown painters and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective on his life in this book. Through the Psalms he wrote, his time as a shepherd in the field is where the book starts, and it goes on to describe his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul as well as other events. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. It also offers advice on approaching God and living a life that pleases him. Check out the book, The Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh Wagner, now available on Amazon. Keywords, Sweet Psalmist, Shireenabuakleh Wagner.
Hey, this is Ray Powers, and boy, are you in luck. Right place, right time. Tuned in to The Mike Wagner Show. You heard me.
We're back with author Lani Lanchester of Learning to Listen to Palestine here on The Mike Wagner Show. And just one more thing about the book. What can we learn about the experience, and what do you want people to get from the book?
Well, one of the most important things about the book is that it has hope. And I would not have written this book if there wasn't hope. Because as I was learning to listen to Palestine, I was devastated. My soul was torn open. And then after my dad died, my sister told me, she handed me this book. It's The Book of Forgiving by Desmond Tutu.
Oh, yes, I've seen that.
Have you seen this?
Mm-hmm.
I had never read this. And she said, you need this, Lani, because I was hurting so much after my dad died. And when I read it, I was shocked because I didn't know what South Africa went through. South Africa was one of the worst places I knew in the 80s when I was a teenager, with the apartheid. And I remember the wars and the horrible things people did together. And I didn't think that country could heal from that. It was just the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read this book, The Book of Forgiving, I found what Desmond Tutu did in South Africa. He had these meetings. They were like trials, but they weren't exactly trials. They were these meetings about forgiving. And it was a 4-step process where he said in order for people to forgive, they had to tell their story. They had to tell what happened. And they would tell it to the people who did this to them. And then they had the opportunity to systematically forgive people. And this healed the nation.
Wow, okay.
And I didn't know this. Now, and he did this, and it was hard work. It wasn't an easy thing. It was really hard work. And I realized if that can work in South Africa, that could work in Israel, between Israel and Palestine. There is a peace plan here. And it's interesting, like the story I told about talking to my students, that what I was doing was part of that. I was doing that peace plan. I was opening the door and giving an opportunity to hear his story so that he could forgive and move forward and have a future. Because our vengeance, because Desmond Tutu said the vengeance was going to tear us apart. We weren't going to survive. And so he had to deal with that. And so this was how he dealt with it. And so seeing that hope was amazing to me. And in fact, I saw it when I was in Israel. There was one point when I was driving my little car. I went to Jerusalem. And I walked up the hill to a church on the Mount of Olives. And it's called Pater Noster. And it commemorates where Jesus taught his disciples how to pray.
Uh-huh.
And I realized as I was reading this book that was the peace plan there as well. Because here Jesus says, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." So we have one Father. We're one people. And we have one God, So So we have one Father. So our Father art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So in heaven, we're not divided by religions or people groups or politics or any of these things. There we are one people. Then it talks about forgiveness. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So the forgiveness is right in the middle of it. And at the end, and lead us not into temptation. Lead us not into temptation, but
deliver us from evil.
But deliver us from the evil one. So we do have an enemy, and it's not each other. And that's what we have to realize, is that what is this force that's trying to make us destroy each other? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We have, we need to be on the same side.
Right.
And that is the point when we can have peace, is when we realize that we are one people, that we need to forgive each other as we are forgiven, and that we have to recognize that anything that's trying to destroy us, that is our enemy, and it's not each other. There's something that's driving us to destroy ourselves. And so that is part of it that gives me, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is it gives me hope. And the other person who helped me write the book was, and this is written by a Palestinian pastor, Yohanna Catenaccio, and he gave me hope, and he helped me see a better path through all of this mess. Because there was one point where I was really bitter, and I was writing by that point, and I reached out to this pastor, and I said, what do I do about this? And he said, Lani, we love them. We love them. That's what we're called to. Don't forget our mission. Our mission is to love. And so that is the mission of Christ. And the Israel, Palestine, it's the land of Christ. It's the Holy Land. And the mission of Christ is to teach us all to love one another. And so this is one of the things, this is the hope. And it's a difficult thing to understand. And there's one person who can explain it better than anybody, and that is Yohanna Catenaccio. When he was a 20-something, he was a fairly new Christian. He had been an atheist, and he was called back to God and to Christ. And when this happened, there was a point where he was challenged by God to love his neighbors. And he's like going, oh, God, I'm Palestinian. My neighbor, my enemy, no, not to love his neighbor, to love his enemy. And my enemy is in my face with guns. And in fact, it was the 1980s. And in the 1980s, there had been a law passed during that time that if a Palestinian didn't present his papers appropriately, quickly, that he could be shot.
Oh, wow.
And so he was leaving his office late one evening. He was living in Jerusalem at this point. And he was waved over by 3 Israeli soldiers. And he went to get his ID card, and he went a little bit too fast to zip down his jacket. And suddenly he has 3 M16s pointed at his head.
Oh, my goodness.
And he had just had a prayer with God. God, I trust you. I can't love my enemies, but you can. So you'll have to do this. And what happened was he did this. He put his hand on his heart and he said to the soldiers, I have a love here for you.
Wow. And they backed off.
And the soldiers went, what? And so they kind of lowered their guns and went, what? And so they were surprised by Yohanna Catenaccio. He says that he was as surprised as they were because he didn't think he had this in him either. And so anyway, he talked to them for about 20 minutes about Jesus. And at the end of it, one of them said, "I wish all Palestinians were like you." And he said, "No, I wish you were like me."
That is so amazing. Wow.
And so I think those are the three pillars that my book stands on: is a Palestinian Christian who teaches love, an Israeli who teaches truth, and a South African who teaches hope.
That is so fantastic. Very heart moving, Lani. And where can we find your book at?
It's on Amazon, and you can find it on Barnes & Noble as well. And very soon, it's going to come out on audio as well.
That sounds great. We're looking forward to it. With author Lani Lanchester of Learning to Listen to Palestine, a personal quest here on the Mike Wagner Show. And just a couple of things. What else can we expect in 2024 going into 2025 and beyond?
For me?
Yes.
Well, I am working on writing another book. It's about teaching, because this is the book that I always wanted to write. And so I started working on it, and I've started delivering chapters to my editor. It's about teaching the respect for life in the classroom, in every lesson. And not just, respect for all life. And then my mom said, "Lani, you're not done writing about Palestine, are you?" And I said, "No, I need to write about the West Bank. I need to write Learning to Listen to Bethlehem." So I hope to start writing about the West Bank as well. I'm starting to do research on it. I don't understand the West Bank, and I'm just starting to understand the West Bank. The West Bank is a tangled mess of politics and treaties and lies and deceptions. And so it's going to be a difficult story, but it's also going to be a beautiful story, because there is so much love there. And there's so many wonderful stories that come out of Palestine and out of the West Bank as well. So,
oh my gosh, I'm so looking forward to it. I can't wait to have you on and keep us updated and talk more about that. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
My biggest influence, well, definitely God. I guess there was a teacher who taught me that I could write. And but my biggest influence is definitely my students. My students teach me something every day about listening, about respect for life. The energy of a student, they still have all of that idealism, and they want to make the world a better place every day. And I tell them, every lesson that I teach, the goal of every lesson I teach is to make the world a better place. And they believe me. And when they believe me, that is so exciting to me. And there was one point where I told a student that was teaching about environmental science, and I was telling all the bad things that have been happening. And I told him that, yes, we've been doing this, and we've been doing this, we've been doing this. You need to know about it, because you're going to have to fix it. And he's like going, "That's so not cool, Mrs. Lanchester. You need to start writing too." And I went, oh, I've been trying to give them a voice for so long that I got called out and told that I needed to use my voice too. So,
I think that's a really good idea. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
That your voice is important. And and every voice is important. And if you are not sharing, that you are stealing from the next generation. And so we need to hear your voice.
I think that's very important as well, too. And very, very good insight, Lani, as well. We're with author Lani Lanchester of Learning to Learn to Palestine, a personal quest on the Mike Wagner Show. Lani, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep yourself up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And also, what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your book?
Yes, I have a website, listentopalestine.com. And I have some podcasts on there as well. So I've started making a few podcasts, and I've taken a break, and I'm partnering up with another woman who has been learning about the West Bank. As I said, that's important for us to learn about the West Bank as well. And one thing I can say, it's time that we learn to listen to Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know that what's happening in Gaza is wrong.
Right.
And so it's time that we learn to listen, to pick up a book that says Palestine on the front of it. Any book. This one. This was a great one. And I have stacks of other ones. Start reading about Palestine. Start reaching out and meeting Palestinians in your neighborhood. The diaspora has spread them across the globe, and they are in your neighborhood somewhere. Get to meet them and tell them that you want to hear their story. They will sit you down, and they will pour you tea, and they will tell you their story because they want to be heard.
Oh, I'm so thirsty for tea right now. Yeah, I'm so thirsty for tea right now. And what's your website again?
ListenToPalestine.com.
All right, well, certainly check that out. Once again, Lani, a very big thank you for time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. We wish you all best. And Lani, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you so much.
The Mike Wagner Show is powered by Sonic Web Studios. If you're looking to start or upgrade your online presence, visit www.sonicwebstudios.com for all of your online needs. Call 1-800-303-3960 or visit us online at www.sonicwebstudios.com to get started today. Mention The Mike Wagner Show and get 20% off your project. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level.
Hi, I'm Burl Bear, legendary American author, and I'm here to tell you about Missing, the new mystery suspense novel by Mian Mosensia. It's really a good book. Very surprising. Never metaphor I didn't like, especially in this book. Here you have a main character whose life has been filled with despair. His wife died in 9/11. His young daughter died of a rare disease. He's not a happy camper. What does he do for a living? He's a physical fitness trainer. When somebody hardly knows, someone he's never met, he only has encountered them on an internet chat line, goes missing. This is his journey. He's going to go rescue them. This is his search for redemption, his search for his own personal promised land. He couldn't do anything about the death of his wife, the death of his child, but maybe he could rescue this woman he's never met. That is, if she exists. Missing by Mian Mosensia, international in scope, vastly entertaining, full of surprises. I suggest you get it, either paperback or an electronic edition for your Kindle. Missing by Mian Mosensia.
Baby, come back.
Heidi Tan has a new release, the remake of Player's Baby Come Back.
Spending all my nights, all my money going out of the town.
The special guest, international recording artist Nils on guitar. And now with her own twist on the classic comes Heidi Tan 2023.
Baby, come back. Any kind of fool could see.
She delivers the punch you'd expect from a seasoned pro with this arrangement of Baby Come Back. Destined to be a chart topper, Heidi Tan, Baby Come Back.
The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illuminatical, the think tank of the future. Illuminatical, a human think tank that brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, has created a method to construct a renewable generator with this in mind. This unique product operates on a closed-loop system that generates more energy internally than it needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes and power grids to phones and laptops. This power source is entirely renewable, highly scalable, and more importantly, self-regenerating. For more information, visit facebook.com/Illuminatical. That's facebook.com/ELLUMENIPTICAL today. The Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Shireenabuakleh's Wagner's book, The Sweet Psalmist, now available on Amazon. This book includes 30 exquisite paintings by well-known and unknown painters and King David Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives us a new perspective on his life in this book. Through the Psalms he wrote, his time as a shepherd in the field is where the book starts, and it goes on to describe his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul as well as other events. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, and more. It also offers advice on approaching God and living a life that pleases him. Check out the book, The Sweet Psalmist by Shireenabuakleh Wagner, now available on Amazon. Keywords, Sweet Psalmist, Shireenabuakleh Wagner.
Thanks for listening to The Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. The Mike Wagner Show can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and themikewagnershow.com. Please support our program with your donations at themikewagnershow.com. Join us again next time for another great episode of The Mike Wagner Show.